On today's show, Donovan Mitchell starred at the start. Darius Garland closed things down, and Evan Mobley had a big night in between. The Cavs get back in the win column with a big win over the Pacers on Tuesday night. Let's talk about all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Cavs also now does have a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. The Cleveland Cavaliers 127-117 winners here in Indianapolis over the Pacers on Tuesday night. They bounced back from what was a very disheartening loss on Sunday, I think it's fair to call it, where the team did not play well on either end of the floor for the majority of the night on Sunday against the Pacers. It was a total opposite tonight. And this game started with Donovan Mitchell having 19 of his game-high 35 points in the first quarter. And I thought it was really important that Donovan came out and had the type of performance that he's had, because he has been a different player this year. He's not any better. He's not any worse than what he's been, but I think the Cavs have been asking him to do things differently than he's done in the past, and he's accepted that role. He stepped up to that challenge. And I think one of the things that has been the best part about Donovan Mitchell, not only this year, but throughout the entirety of his tenure with the Cavs, is that he's had a great sense of the moment. He knows when his team needs him to be aggressive scoring the basketball. He knows when his team needs him to kind of lay back a little bit and let people like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland control the game a little bit. And I thought that he had a great sense on Tuesday night of knowing that this team needed him to come out and be aggressive with the basketball early and often. 19 points in the first quarter. It's the most points he has scored in a first quarter this season. It's just his third game with 30 or more points since December 1st. Go back to that win against the Celtics. He had 35 points in that game, I believe. He had 30 plus points against the Warriors against Denver, just after Christmas. And tonight, this was the first time in 2025 that he actually scored 20 or more points in a game. So his scoring has not necessarily been what the Cavs have been asking him to do. He's been very good in other areas. But on Tuesday night, the Cavs really needed him to score the basketball, and he did a great job of that. He had 3 threes early on. He had a fourth that his toe was on the line near the end of the first quarter, and it was kind of what we were used to seeing from Donovan Mitchell in the first 2 years of his time in Cleveland, when he was asked to do so much more with the basketball in his hands. And I think it's for the best, because the Cavs, it's allowed Darius Garland, it's allowed Evan Mobley to take those steps forward. But Donovan Mitchell stepped up on Tuesday night, and the Cavs needed it. I think that they viewed Sunday's loss against the Pacers as a bit of a wake-up call. And I'll talk about that a little bit more coming up later in the show. But this was the one thing that, from post-game media access, talking to Kenny Atkinson, talking to Darius Garland, talking to Evan Mobley, even talking to Donovan himself, the one thing that stuck out to me, and I want to read the quote Kenny gave verbatim because I do think it's important, but he said, Donovan set the tone. It was one of those nights where he wasn't going to let us lose. He knew that. I knew from shoot around. The guys were locked in and responded really well. And Darius Garland also mentioned that he could sense in shoot around on Tuesday morning that it was a little bit of a different version of Donovan Mitchell than we see on a nightly basis. That doesn't make it better, doesn't make it worse, just that he was a little bit more locked in. Evan Mobley agreed with him. Even Donovan said, because I did ask, I said, hey, the guys have mentioned, multiple people have mentioned, that you were a little bit different at that he thought that he smiled maybe a little bit less, that he was a little ticked off about the loss on Sunday, and he wanted to come out and kind of play with a bit of a vengeance. And I thought he did a great job of that. The Cavs needed him to be aggressive. They needed him to be a scorer. They needed him to really put his imprint, his stamp, if you will, on this game as early as he possibly could. And give the Pacers credit. They played really hard on Tuesday night without Tyrese Haliburton. I thought they played relatively well. The Cavs are just the better team in this matchup, and they had the better game on Tuesday night. And Donovan Mitchell was a big part of that. Again, he had 35 points, which is something we haven't seen a ton of from him lately. We've not seen him go out and be the guy that scores 30 plus a night. He's averaging, I believe, the fewest points per game since his rookie season. He's averaging the fewest shots per game since his rookie season. A lot of the things that I talked about on yesterday's show, where I talked about Donovan hasn't been asked to do enough. Are the Cavs asking Donovan to do enough? Are they getting the most out of Donovan Mitchell? And I think tonight was a good reminder that Donovan is still capable of doing all of those things. He's still capable of going out and getting 30 plus points whenever he needs to. He's still capable of putting the Cavs on his back certain nights. He just doesn't need to do it every single night. And he didn't need to do it for the full 4 quarters on Tuesday night. That's an important thing too. I'll talk about coming up in just a second, because Darius Garland was really good down the stretch. Evan Mobley was really good in the third quarter. The Cavs didn't need Donovan Mitchell to take over the entire game. They needed him for a stretch. They needed him for the first half. They needed him for the first quarter. He scored 27 points in the first half. So it wasn't just the 19 in the first quarter and then he disappeared. It was 27 in the first half. And then in the second half, he didn't necessarily have it going on quite as well, but he didn't need to, because the Cavs had other guys step up. And it's about sensing that moment. It's about knowing when, okay, it's time for me as Donovan Mitchell to go out and make a big impact on this game. And I do think it's for the best for the Cavs that he's able to do this, and it doesn't have to be the whole game. I think there have been instances in the last couple of years where he has needed to do this for 48 minutes. And we would see games like that where he has to do it for 48 minutes, and that means he plays 42 of those minutes. Well, on Tuesday night, played 31 minutes and scored 35 points. So he was super impactful in the time he was on the floor. He was a team high plus 13. And oftentimes, plus minus is a stat that doesn't necessarily always mean, hey, I had this exact impact on the game. Sometimes you can be along for the ride. Sometimes you can be playing really well and the rest of the team not playing well and have a negative plus minus. Donovan Mitchell felt like he was the most impactful player in this game, certainly was the most impactful player in the first half of this one. And the Cavs needed it, because I think that there were a lot of people that were worried about what happened, because one, the Pacers have some size on the wing, and that can kind of maybe be a Cavs kryptonite. I don't know if there's enough evidence there to really support it with this specific version of the Cavs, but I do understand where that concern comes from. And the Pacers just went into Cleveland, and I don't think they necessarily dominated that game, but they dominated that second half. And I think had this game been lost, we could have been going into OKC on Thursday night, maybe looking at this team having its first 3-game losing streak, because that's a really tough test too. But instead of that being the case, this is now a team that gets to go into that huge matchup again, seeing OKC for the second time in a week and a day, really, and have a better feeling about themselves than if they would have gone into that having lost 2 straight. This is a tough road trip. Starting off in Indy is not an easy place to go against a Central Division team, a team that just saw you, even if they don't have Tyrese Haliburton. They play the Cavs well. They brought out that full court press again for a significant part of this game. And I do think that was something the Cavs still struggled with. This wasn't some perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought that the Cavs did enough, and I thought it all goes back to what Donovan Mitchell was able to do at the start of this game. They needed him to score. They needed him to be aggressive. They needed him to come out and say, no, we are the better team here, and I'm going to show from the start that this is who we are. And that's exactly what Donovan Mitchell did. I think he deserves a ton of credit. And I think, too, his teammates, because I talk about Donovan taking a step back at times, too, but I do think that Darius Garland and Evan Mobley specifically have risen to a level to where now it's not just, oh, Donovan Mitchell is taking a step back so those guys can flourish. I think there are times where those guys now can take a step back, so Donovan Mitchell can take over the way that he did. It's everybody is learning to have a great sense of that moment, what is required when. And I think that was really on display Tuesday night, not just in the first quarter with Donovan. It was on display then with Donovan, but I think it was on display in the third quarter with Evan Mobley. I think it was on display in the fourth quarter with Darius Garland, because those guys had an awesome second half. And I'm going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping, meal planning, we can kind of all have this problem where we don't have the time, right? I've got a lot on my plate work-wise. I'm in Indianapolis right now. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening, my feet are on the floor at Gainbridge Fieldhouse as I'm recording this. So I'm not home. I can't go grocery shopping. I can't do all the stuff that maybe I need to do to make sure that my house is in order. And while, it's a new year, I think we all kind of probably want to try and eat healthier if we can. It's easy to feel stressed out about that stuff. Going to the grocery store, you go dangerous thing to do, and then you don't actually have the time to cook and do the things that you need to do on that end. But everything can change with Hungry Root, because it is a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all of the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of grocery shopping, recommending meals, groceries, all that based on your tastes and your health goals. From anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. The best part too, every meal can be ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered right to your door. So you're going to love Hungry Root. And for a limited time, you can get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for 40% off. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDON NBA, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can get the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure you're subscribed. Click that subscribe button for me. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. So the first quarter was all about Donovan Mitchell. The fourth quarter tonight was all about Darius Garland. He had 13 of his 24 points in the fourth quarter. Thought he did a great job of closing out this Pacers team that really wouldn't go away. They got it down to, I believe, as close to 6 points in the fourth quarter. And the Cavs did have a really good third quarter too. I'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. But the Cavs had a really good third quarter, and then Darius Garland kind of took them home in the fourth quarter. He had 13 points. He was 5 of 7 shooting. He just continues to step up and be incredibly clutch at all times. And Kenny Atkinson called him this team's closer. He didn't want to make it seem like Darius is the only closer on this team, but I do think it's really important that we have seen Darius Garland have so many instances in the fourth quarter where he's been able to step up, where he's been able to score points when he needs to, or set up teammates when he needs to. He's kind of been, I think, at his best when the game is on the line. And he did talk after the game about the final 6 minutes of the game being the most important in time, where he really tries to control his aggression and make sure he's picking the right spots. He did lament a turnover that he had, but overall, he was the best player on the floor during this fourth quarter. And what I do think is a really good thing about this Cavs team and this game in specific is throughout they played 4 quarters tonight. 4 quarters in a basketball game. In the first quarter, Donovan Mitchell was the best player. In the second quarter, I thought Donovan Mitchell was the best player again. In the third quarter, Evan Mobley was the best player. And in the fourth quarter, Darius Garland was the best player. And I think all of that, when you put that together, it makes for a great team. And it makes for a team that's unpredictable. And having Garland be the guy that can have the basketball in his hands in the fourth quarter, make the correct play over and over and over again, even if that means scoring or if it means passing, whatever it is, he continues to do it. He continues to impress. He hit some really big shots tonight. The same way that we saw him, down the stretch against Toronto. The same way that we saw him help to close out the game against OKC last Wednesday. Darius just continues to step up over and over and over again. I think that he really is, to this point in the season, and this isn't to say he hasn't been really good in other seasons, because he has been, but I think to this point in the season, he is having the best season of his career. And it leads me to further think that when we get to the end of Darius Garland's career, however many years away that's going to be, we're going to look at last season as kind of what happened there. Like you're almost going to scroll through his basketball reference page and you kind of wish there would just be an asterisk on the 2023-2024 season because of everything that happened that affected him. But this year he's been outstanding, and he was outstanding again in this game. Evan Mobley, as I mentioned, in the third quarter was terrific. He had 13 points in that third quarter. He made 3 threes in the third quarter. He finished the night 3 of 4 on 3-point attempts. And when Evan Mobley hits 3 threes in a game or more, because he has had now a few games where he's hit more, the Cavs are 8-0. And before this season, I believe Evan Mobley had 1 game in his career where he has hit 3 threes. So his range has really expanded. I think we're starting to see opposing defenses treat him just a little bit differently with how they defend him, how far out they have to go to make sure that they are defending him as well as possible. He's not just a guy that you have to worry about now 15 feet and in. He's a guy that no matter where he is on the floor, you have to worry about. And that is the thing that I do think is unlocking this Cavs offense. I think there are a few things still that are going to get better for this team on the offensive end of the floor, but Evan expanding his range and being that guy is certainly part of it. He also had a move. Jarris Walker was defending him for the Pacers in the second half when this happened. He hit him with a spin move and got to the basket for, I don't remember if he laid the ball in or if he dunked, but I think that was probably the best basketball in hand move that Evan Mobley has had in his career. It's certainly the best spin move I've seen him have. And I do think that his spin move has been something that's getting better for him. Like that has been a tool that I've been really impressed to see in his toolbox throughout this year. Not to say he couldn't do it in the past, but I think it's gotten a lot better this year than what it was before. That is certainly part of his offensive evolution, that he's able to do that he's so confident doing that type of stuff. And you see it over and over and over again. Like the guy Evan Mobley is right now on the offensive end of the floor, I think is a totally different person than who he was at the start of the season. Think back to, opening night in Toronto where he had a great game and it was all, oh, Evan is just getting from that. But he's also somebody that is shooting from outside, that his handle has gotten tighter. Like watching him dribble, even just up the floor when the Pacers are pressing, I don't know how confident he would have been doing that 3 months ago. I don't know how successful he would have been doing that 3 months ago. I think game by game, we're watching Evan Mobley get better, and he's already really, really good. Like, I think just as I talked about yesterday about Darius Garland, I think the all-star conversation with Evan Mobley is probably over at this point. I think Evan Mobley is an all-star, and I think the conversation we're going to start having about Evan Mobley probably early next month, maybe after the all-star break, is not about Evan Mobley being an all-star. It's about, is Evan Mobley an all-NBA player? Like, that is the thing that I think is going to start to surface, because the leap he has made on offense has been drastic from what he was. And it's not to say he wasn't a good offensive player before, but he wasn't anything close to this. That he's somebody that will get consideration for most improved player, and watching him take over the game the way that he did in the third quarter on Tuesday night against the Pacers, it just speaks to the growth that he has. It speaks to the player he is. And I still think that there's so much more for him to go with. I don't think that he's done growing as a shooter. I don't see why he's not going to continue to improve as a ball handler. I just think that there's still a lot for Evan Mobley to work with on that end of the floor, but he's been so good lately for the Cavs on offense. The last thing I wanted to touch on here before I move on to just what really made this win important is Max Strus. So he had another good night for the Cavs. He had 13 points. He made 4 more 3-pointers in this game. He's now made 4 more threes in 3 of his last 4 games. And I know his first night back, he hit 3 threes. He looked good. And then he kind of looked like a guy that was searching for some rhythm. And I think that we're getting to the point now where we can say, okay, Max Strus is back. Max Strus has the rhythm that he may have been searching for when he first came back. He has really been a boost to this Cavs team. I don't know if he's going to be in the starting lineup anytime soon, but I do know that when he's out there with the other 4 starters, things will look really when you look at the zone defense that they play, and I will talk about that too coming up in just a second, but he's been awesome for the Cavs. He was awesome in this game tonight. Again, 4 of 7 from 3, finished with 13 points. His only missed shot was a missed layup on what should have been an assist on a full court pass from Darius Garland. But other than that, I not his only missed shot, but his only missed non-3-pointer, I should say, was that missed layup attempt. But the Cavs are a better team with Max Strus on the floor. I think you saw that Tuesday. I think you're going to continue to see that as time rolls along. So after the loss on Sunday, I thought that this game coming up on Tuesday was important for a few reasons. We'll talk through why this win for the Cavs was actually one of the more important wins that they have this season. We'll do that next, right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always do find that decluttering, cleaning a little bit, maybe rearranging some things or getting something new in there, whether it's in your office, your bedroom, your kitchen, whatever, that's something that I do think kind of gets me help back on track. Like recently went through the podcast studio I have in my home that I typically record in, cleaned it out, gave it a nice little refresh, and I just feel better when I enter that space. So whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the year like I did, Wayfair has everything you need, and it's all within your budget too. It's something that, if you're looking for furniture, they've got a huge selection, and it makes things easy to find pieces that fit both your style, because listen, we want our place to look good. We want it to look a certain way. You shouldn't have to negotiate what the look looks like, and you shouldn't have to change your budget to make that happen either. And they also have free and hassle-free delivery, even for the bigger items, right? Like it can be a huge hassle if you love something, if you want to put it in your home, like, man, that'd be perfect. I got to rent the truck to get it home. You don't want to do that. Wayfair doesn't make you do that. They have free and hassle-free delivery. And Wayfair's site, very easy to navigate. You can find everything that you need in no time. There's something for every single style in every home, no matter your space, no matter your budget. And Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. And give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's wayfair.com, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. If you're watching the show on YouTube, you can tell I am currently sitting feet on the floor at Gamebridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis after the Cavs beat the Pacers. So if you're watching me do this, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next Locked On Cavs video. This was an important win for the Cavs, not because they beat the Pacers, not because they're 34-5, but because this was as close as you're going to get to a playoff type thing in terms of not setting. Like the crowd was good on Tuesday night. I've been in more raucous environments, like last Wednesday against the Thunder in Cleveland was certainly a louder environment than this one. But the fact that the Cavs played the same team back to back and were able to make the proper adjustments after Indiana took it to them on Sunday, the Cavs were able to make the right adjustments and find a way to make sure that didn't happen again. Because in the postseason, I don't want to get ahead of my skis here, but I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think the Cavs are going to lose a playoff game. I don't think they're going to go 16-0 this year, guys. I really think that when we get to the postseason, they're going to face a challenge like this one, where they maybe lose a game at home and they have to go on the road and find a way to beat the team that just beat them. They have to find a way to make the proper adjustments to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And that's what they did. One of the things that I thought was really smart by Kenny Atkinson, really well done by this team, was the fact that they played a lot of zone in the second half of this game, because Pascal Siakam, he had 21 points for Indiana in the first half. He was really, really good. If not for Donovan Mitchell, he would have been the best player on the floor. In the second half, he only had 2 points. And the Cavs didn't play exclusively that zone defense, but they played a lot of it. And that was something that really slowed down what the Pacers wanted to do offensively. That's a big reason why they were able to win this game, because of that zone defense that I think we're starting to see them go to more and more. It's not something I think they can do exclusively, but I do think it's a great change-up to have in the tool belt. I really do think that's a really good thing to break out for maybe 3 possessions during the second half of a playoff game. Being able to do that and do it at a high level is a really, really good thing for this Cavs team to be able to have. And the other reason why I thought the Cavs' response from losing on Sunday to Tuesday night was important, because it shows that this isn't going to be a team that now loses focus in the regular season for long stretches. Are they going to lose more games? Yeah. They're not going to finish with only 5 losses on the year, guys. There are going to be other nights where they don't necessarily have it going on, and that's okay. But the way they respond to it, the way that they said, Sunday night, that loss was a little bit of a wake-up call. I thought that was a good thing. I think if you're a Cavs fan, that should be something you want to hear, that it's okay. Sometimes teams need to be humbled a little bit. And I don't necessarily think that was the case with the Cavs. I don't think that they were getting too cocky or anything. Certainly not after, losing the game to Toronto, or beating Toronto in a game that they probably should have lost, I should say, last Thursday. But I do think that this gave them the opportunity to and they did a great job of that. And they were able to put that loss behind them. They were able to make the proper adjustments that they needed to. And they were able to find a way to get a win against a good team. I don't think the Pacers are great. I don't think that we should be scheduling hotels for the conference finals in Indianapolis. But I think that Indiana is a playoff team. And the Cavs getting this win over a playoff team the way they did, something that I do think is important to see, because that's the Cavs are going to be in this situation again. They're going to be in a situation where they lose a playoff game and they have to find a way to make adjustments. I thought Kenny Atkinson and his coaching staff did a really good job of that. And I thought the players responded appropriately to playing not a good game on Sunday. So now the Cavs continue the road trip. They are in OKC Thursday night for another nationally televised game. Will be on TNT. That's a big one. It's not the same situation as this Pacers 2-game set was, but they played OKC not too long ago. They should be relatively familiar with the Thunder. The adjustments that they make after already beating that team, I think it'll be interesting to see. I can't wait to watch that one unfold. But I will be back tomorrow with another edition of Locked on Cavs, talking about this team, this win, looking ahead a little bit more to the OKC game coming up on Thursday. So anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else, check us out on YouTube, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.